So sometimes ago I make a tier list video talking about the grade 3s of the VS03 and VS04, and I made this particular statement. V is by far not my favorite format of Vanguard. And yes, I still have my disdain towards the V series, and at the same time I still have doubt whether the format has been kind of fixed or not. So today I will be kind of explaining my reasons for not liking V as much as D format as of now, and also I will suggest a few solutions that can be kind of done to fix the issue that I mentioned that I kind of have with the format itself. So if you guys enjoy this kind of content, consider like, share and subscribe to this channel. I make Vanguard content semi-regularly, as much as I can. So if that is your jam, consider hit that red button and ring the bell to keep up with all the notification, and leave in the comments below of what do you think of the V format, as all of this engagement will actually help me to go toward the 1000 subs goal. So for those who already contributed to that, thank you so much. Like, I have no word to say, but thank you. And without further ado, let's get into it. The first issue that I have with V format is something that makes V format, and that is imaginary gift. So for those who don't know, imaginary gift is the mechanic where when you write into a grade 3s, you get these particular markers which give your deck a different benefits, and there are currently 3 types of them: Force, Excel and Protect, where each of them has 2 variants. And the problem starts from there actually, as 2 out of 3 different markers are actually very different from one another. Force and Excel and essentially Protect 2 are more or less uninteractable and passive, as once you get it, you need to put it on the field. So unless you use the cards like Blazing Fire to remove all the markers, you essentially have 0 way to counter this particular play. While Protect 1, the original Protect, is essentially give you a card in your hand. It's essentially a PG, and that means that it can be interact and is considered to be very reactive, as it depends on whether do you want to guard the opponent with the PG.
No, he's got a point.
This is fine and dandy until you realize that there is a lot of counter to Protect's marker in general, such as Sentinel Restrict, Retire, and even the card that restrict the number of cards to guard in your hand. And that means that a lot of Protect decks are already at an inherent disadvantage just for being in the Protect clan. And to make things worse, Protect 2 is widely known to be one of the most underwhelming markers on its own, and there's not a lot of decks that can take full advantage of it. In fact, from my memory, there is only 3 to 4 archetypes, not the clans, archetypes, in the Protect clans to be able to use Protect 2 in the more effective manner. Now looking back into Force and Excel clan decks, and we notice that regardless of situation, all these decks will always have a use for Force and Excel markers, while Protect is extremely situational in both of the variants, and that causes the imbalance that I don't like. This may sound biased coming from someone who play mainly Protect clans. Ha! Gay! But even if you are Force and Excel main, you can notice this imbalanced power regardless, and for some of the players, this might be the very reason why they don't play Protect in the first place. The second problem I have with the V format is something that's very closely related to the very first point that I was mentioning, and that is markers acceleration. So this is essentially the term describes certain decks that has ability to generate imaginary gift more than one at a time within one turn. And essentially, I gotta admit, this is a very good mechanic, as it is a very natural progression of V format. However, the problem with imbalanced gift issue actually ruins its reputation.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
As Excel and Force power increase exponentially as more marker is added to the field, while Protect is more or less linear, as it heavily depends on the situation opponent has. This essentially resulted in decks that has ability to accelerate the markers and are in the Excel or Force clans are generally being more played in the competitive setting because they are just easier to win the opponent and overwhelm the opponent with the power or multiple attacks that way. A very good example of these decks are of course Lua, Tawas, and even Ezel. Of course, I'm not saying there is no good Protect clan deck. There are definitely good Protect clan deck like Gabriel and Night Rose. However, these decks rely more on its own mechanic rather than marker itself.
Of course!
In fact, the marker is more or less something secondary compared to their mechanics. This makes Protect feels like a decoration rather than a mechanic that you can rely on. The next issue I have is less towards on the game design side, but more of the price, like the price point. V format, in my opinion, is by far one of the hardest format to get into back when it's still considered the standard, as it is very expensive, especially with the VR, as many of these VR units are iconic units that a lot of people wants to play. Of course, you can still build the budget deck,
which is nice and all.
There are options for it. However, it's just not as good as the VR cards, and because of that, a lot of people lose a lot of money because of it.
You're failing in the highest level.
And to make things worse, there is a market price crashes in late of the V format, specifically when Luart was released.
No, God! No, God, please, no!
And because of that, it betrays the trust of a lot of card shop partnership, and many of them actually dissolve the contract after the contract is over, resulting in a dip in the sales of Vanguard in general, and almost make Vanguard went under the table. I know I'm not the most business savvy person around in the internet, but I can say that the cost of building a deck in V format together with the market price crash in the late V definitely contributes to a lot of people distrust to what Bushiroad in recent years. The last problem I have with V format is essentially an amalgamation of the first three. In fact, this particular point is the reason why the first three happened in the first place.
NANI?
And that is a very horrible and inconsistent card design.
Why are you boring me? I'm right.
Before any V stands start to flame me on this one, I have a good reason to talk about it. The first and foremost is the fact that V has a horrible start, even worse than D format.
No, he's got a point.
It starts off with a very linear effect, which is making sense, and then it has a very rock paper scissors style kind of play, which is very linear. Like, it takes the linear too much, but it gets a lot better since the VVT-05, the aerial state liberation booster, was released, as the card effects start to get more stronger, but it's also very unique and fun. However, the design start to get a little bit too far after VBT-07, and it's actually peaked at the release of Luart. In my opinion, Luart was the camel toe that break, as it is the amalgamation of all the first three problems I was mentioning earlier in a single card. And it gets worse from here until they decided to reboot the format. So, can any of these issues can be done? And the answer is yes, to an extent. For the gift marker imbalance, you can essentially just errata fix Protect 1 and Protect 2 to make things a little bit more useful. Like, for example, give a way to Protect 2 to interact more than just plus 10k shield and permanent 5k plus, and for Protect to have a little bit different ruling than what it is currently having. But that doesn't seem to be feasible because Bushiroad hates to errata fix their cards unless it is very necessary. For the marker acceleration, I do feel that this is a mechanic that it still can be kept, it is fine, but you need to be able to balance it out well, and it's not easy. A very good example for this, I will just bring from a Protect example here, and that is Witches and Hanzo. Those two are a pleasant surprise way of doing a marker acceleration, and that's something they should kind of stick to. Force wise, I don't have anything to say about it. The more force marker is generated, the better, so it is fine. Just make sure that you balance everything out. And the last two problems is more or less kind of already been solved with the release of Clan Collections. So Clan Collection released a good number of reprints that is quite crucial to deck building of the current V format, and because of that, the price point dipped to an extent that I think it is very easy to get into V without breaking your banks.
Hey, that's pretty good.
And for card design wise, I see that they are getting more creative with the release of the reverse unit, but I think they were able to more or less making the balance mechanic consistently already. It's just that now they need to cut off the V that is still around in the V format, and that is the pre-D release. I mean, those decks require some kind of restriction, and I mean most of them. Like most of them need some kind of restriction to make sure that the format is in the very healthy state. And I hope the upcoming ban list, I think there is a ban list coming up. And I hope this upcoming ban list actually has something to do with these things. I hope Wishro don't just stay silent on this V format and don't ban any cards like what they usually do, and just think of it seriously or listen to the community in general. And I think the WFC Kai video that has released some time ago with talking about the what card to be hit in V, it makes sense a lot of it. I mean, to me, those actually make sense. And it will definitely make the format a lot healthier. And let's come to the end of this video. What do you guys think of the V format in general? Does my reasoning for not liking V format making sense? And if so, then leave in the comments down below. If not, also leave in the comments down below. We can have a healthy debate. And that's all I have for today, guys. This is Mac Megane, signing out.